Have you ever had one of those days where you just couldn't stand being around anyone? You know the feeling. Maybe you're stuck in traffic and the driver next to you is singing terribly into their rearview mirror. Or you're at a family dinner and your uncle is laying into some deeply held belief of yours with a smug, knowing look. You leave feeling utterly drained, almost violated, and you think to yourself, why is this so hard? We spend so much time and energy perfecting ourselves, trying to be kinder, trying to be more patient, trying to be better people. But then we step out the front door and immediately crash into other human beings, and suddenly all that self-improvement seems to dissolve into this raw, defensive irritation. It's not just that people are annoying, it's that coexisting with them feels like an unwinnable, low-grade war you're forced to fight every single day. Why do we feel so judged, so boxed in, and so misunderstood by the people who are supposedly closest to us? This isn't just about bad manners or mismatched personalities. This is about a much deeper problem, a problem of existence itself. And that's where we turn to one of the most brilliant and perhaps most brutally honest minds of the 20th century, the French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. Sartre laid out the fundamental truth that explains all this friction, and he did it with a phrase that's become legendary. Hell is other people. Now, he didn't mean that people are inherently evil or malicious. What he meant is that simply being seen by another person is a form of torture. It immediately steals your most precious possession, your absolute, untainted freedom. Think about it like this. Imagine you're walking through a park, completely lost in thought, totally free in your own head. You are the center of your universe. You are pure subjectivity. You have infinite possibilities. You could quit your job. You could suddenly run across the grass. You could do anything. You are fully free. But then you notice someone looking at you. In that instant, everything changes. The moment you register their gaze, the look, as Sartre called it in his work, Being and Nothingness, you instantly become a thing. You become an object in their world. Your infinite, subjective possibilities are reduced to a fixed, limited identity in their eyes. They've defined you as the person walking across the grass, or the person with the weird jacket. You've been categorized, judged, and pinned down. That feeling of having your freedom snatched away is agonizing. It's what makes us defensive, guarded, and difficult to be around. We spend all our energy trying to resist that objectification, and that resistance creates the constant, thick tension between all of us. Sartre wrote, "By the mere appearance of the other, I am put in the position of passing judgment on myself as on an object, for it is as an object that I appear to the other." This quote sums up the existential crisis of being human. Our difficulty with others isn't an accident. It's the inevitable, necessary war that happens when two free, subjective beings collide. Every single interaction is a desperate, unacknowledged struggle to make the other person an object while protecting your own freedom. And that, in Sartre's view, is why people are so hard to live with. So, if being looked at is what makes us feel judged and defensive, what makes us so frustratingly rigid and inflexible to others? Why does that friend always have to play the victim? Or why is that coworker incapable of admitting they're wrong? The answer, for Sartre, is tied up in another core idea: bad faith, or mauvaise foi in French. This isn't just about lying to others, it's about the ultimate lie, the lie you tell yourself. Sartre argued that humans are cursed with radical freedom. We are terrifyingly free to choose our entire identity at every moment. There's no script, no predetermined nature that tells you who you are supposed to be, And honestly, that's utterly exhausting and terrifying. Most people can't live with that kind of anxiety. So, what do? They run. They try to escape their own freedom by adopting a fixed, easy to manage role. They choose to live in bad faith. Think about the cafe waiter example. He performs the role perfectly, a little too quick, a little too precise, balancing the trays just so. He's not just a waiter, he's the waiter. He's trying to convince himself and everyone around him that his entire identity is defined by this one manageable function. He doesn't have to face the terrifying thought that he could walk out right now and become an artist or a lawyer. He's just a waiter, period. And these aren't small, one-off deceptions. They're the pillars people build their whole lives upon. The first is locking yourself down with the past. We love to define ourselves by what we were. We've all heard it. I am just a worrier, or I am terrible with money, or I am just not built for commitment. Notice the verb, that declarative, I am. Every time a person says that about a personality trait, they're taking a series of old decisions, moments when they chose to be anxious or chose not to learn financial discipline, and cementing that history into a permanent fact. It's easier that way, isn't it? It means you don't have to try anymore. It means you can look at the future and say, that's not my job to fix, because this is just who I am. You're denying that at this very moment, you are still free to walk away from that old definition. That sense of fatalism is comforting, but it's a profound act of self-betrayal. But bad faith also works by trapping you with the future, mainly through the tyranny of I have to. I have to stick with this career. I have to make this payment. Or I must follow the plan. Sartre fully understood the crushing weight of bills and institutions. He wasn't living in a fantasy world, yet he insisted that these external factors only control you if you let them become the final word on your actions. When someone insists there's absolutely no alternative, they're usually just terrified of listing the other alternatives. The real choice isn't between stability and ruin. It's often between one type of profound pain, the pain of conformity, and another type of profound pain, the pain of radical, uncertain change. Bad faith whispers in your ear and tells you only the first option is real. The difficult person, then, is someone who has built an entire fortress out of these lies, a mixture of past justifications and future obligations, to keep the dangerous wind of freedom out. They are, in a very real sense, playing a role not just in the world, but to themselves. But this is where he becomes difficult, because he's hiding his genuine self, his messy, free subjectivity, behind a mask of routine. He becomes predictable, emotionally unavailable, and frustratingly inflexible. And when you interact with him, you're not interacting with a real, free person. You're interacting with a carefully constructed lie. This makes real connection impossible. When people act difficult, they are usually just terrified of their own limitless potential. They've clung so tightly to a role. I'm a busy professional. I'm a protective father. I'm a creative genius, that they become brittle. When you challenge that role, even gently, they snap because you're threatening the carefully constructed illusion that keeps their existential anxiety at bay. The difficulty you experience with others isn't them being deliberately mean. It's the sound of their defenses screaming as they desperately try to avoid the reality that they are entirely responsible for who they are. They are rigid because if they let go of that rigid role, they'd be forced to confront the abyss of their own absolute freedom. And that, Sartre says, is why they are so exhausting and hard to truly get along with. They are living a lie, and that dishonesty infects every interaction. So we've established that people are difficult to be around because of this double whammy. They are constantly judging us and turning us into objects, the look, and they are constantly running from their own freedom by adopting rigid roles, bad faith. If that's the truth, then what do we do? Do we just quit human society and live as hermits? Well, the tough news is that Sartre doesn't offer a simple, easy self help fix. There's no 5 step plan to make people stop judging you. He says that the fundamental conflict is permanent, it's baked into the cake of human existence. The look from another person will always be a challenge to your freedom. But the path to a less miserable life lies in changing one thing: your awareness. The key isn't changing them, it's accepting the struggle. Authentic living doesn't mean finding a way to eliminate conflict, it means choosing to be fully aware of it. You have to recognize that the person you're talking to, even the difficult ones, is a source of infinite freedom, just like you. And they are battling their own terror about being judged and defined. When you understand the mechanics of bad faith, you can begin to stop participating in the lie. You stop pretending to be the person the other wants you to be. You accept that you will be objectified, but you choose not to let that objectification define you. That's the first step toward genuine freedom. Sartre would argue that the only relationships that offer any real hope are those built on this transparent struggle. When two people acknowledge, without flinching, that they are both constantly trying to objectify the other while also fighting for their own subjectivity, something real can happen. It's not peaceful, but it is authentic. So the real takeaway isn't that everyone else is hell. The hell is when you internalize those judgments and use them as an excuse to hide in your own bad faith. When you realize that the most difficult thing to be around is often your own rigid, fearful self, you finally find the door out. The courage required to live authentically means facing both the terrifying freedom within yourself and the constant, inescapable judgment from the people around you. It means choosing your identity, fully responsible for your actions, and not hiding behind roles or excuses. It means accepting that true coexistence is a constant, conscious choice, and that is the path to freedom. It doesn't promise happiness, but it promises integrity. You don't get to run anymore. The universe is basically challenging you to level up your life. You stop settling for your struggle being just the way it is and start embracing it as the groundwork for self-mastery. If this idea resonated with you, hit subscribe. Let me know in the comments, what is the single most frustrating role that someone in your life uses to avoid their freedom?